Welcome back, everybody, to day 3 of the Indie Game Business Winter Sessions 2020. We've got an early morning, at least for those of us over here in the U.S. on the East Coast, talk with Nika and Sarah from the IGDA Foundation. And we're not, because this whole talk is like way over my head. They are going to talk about designing global virtual exchanges for aspiring diverse developers in online spaces. I got it all out. So with that, it's all y'all.
Yay, awesome. Hey, everyone. Again, hi, I'm Sarah, and I was the program manager for the online diversity program, which we'll talk about a little bit today. And this is Nika. Nika, I don't know if you want to say a little more about who you are, what you do for the foundation.
Hi, everyone. My name is Nika Noor. I'm the executive director for the IGDA Foundation. I am one of those very sleepy birds this morning. I haven't quite gotten the coffee maker to comply with this panel schedule. But over at the IGDA Foundation, we focus on exclusively on ensuring and trying to work towards a more diverse and inclusive games industry. What does that mean? That means we very much have spent 2020 trying to diversify the workforce and supporting underrepresented communities in advancing their career objectives and also just their goals and aspirations in terms of game development. And that's not necessarily just strictly meant for engineering or coding or game development. We're also talking about narrative designers, audio producers, entrepreneurs. So I am really excited, and Sarah, thank you so much for getting up even earlier than I am. I think it's like 7 o'clock for you. Yeah, we were going through so much. We're actually because we're an international organization and we have international grantees, Sarah and I are very used to getting up at all sorts of hours to provide feedback for grantees. So I'm really excited about this.
Awesome. Yeah, it's always really exciting to talk about this program because I think that we just did it very quickly and then it was done and then everyone's like, what happened? But I think before we dive in, we should probably set the stage a little bit about what we've kind of done in the past. So I know the foundation's offered programs before. Can you speak to kind of just what those programs were, I guess, pre-COVID IGDA Foundation?
Yes. So before we had a global pandemic, the IGDA Foundation usually operates 3 different types of scholarship opportunities. The first is IGDA Scholars, for people that are students looking for access to game development careers would normally apply. Our second program is called Velocity, where you have underrepresented genders that are looking for ways into the games industry, or they are currently in another field and they've been working and they want to make a pivot to a game development career. Our last program is the Next Gen Leaders, where it's not so much a pipeline program, it's a retention program. And so we're looking at people who've been in the industry, 3 to 5 years, 3 to 7 years, and try to determine, hey, where are you at with your life? What's preventing you from maybe staying in the games industry? Because we do have a retention problem. People tend to burn out after 2 to 5 years. And these programs, typically we fly people into GDC, they go through a 1-week boot camp, they're all in their own cohorts. And then there was a global pandemic and GDC was canceled. And what does it look like, or what does it mean to support diverse and marginalized people in isolation without access to networking, without typical access to recruitment, without advising how to find those jobs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at what point then, I guess this year, did we realize that we weren't going to be able to run these programs, do you think?
I knew exactly when the conference was canceled. So I actually it's like the weirdest year to have a relevant degree. I had this master's degree in biodefense, which I thought was really, it's irrelevant to everything I've ever done. I'm not quite sure why I thought studying infectious diseases was like fun in 2012. It's not. The answer to every quiz is to wash your hands. So I still remember, we had 7 different sponsors, and people were pulling out. People were pulling out of the game development conference, and sponsors are pretty much key to ensuring the financial health and the commitment of us being able to be resourced and do this. And I still remember I was in California, and I was just getting, before like the official announcement was made, I was getting one phone call after another from companies telling me that they weren't coming to GDC. And I remember it being very blurry because we had already paid for 60 different flights and hotels. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And I remember it being a very hazy day. It was just one phone call after another. And I remember at some point being like, we're probably going to run out of like toilet paper and stuff, right? Like I still remember, and I remember like blur, like it was a blur, and I walk into a Target and I just grab 2 Lysol wipes off the shelf, and I'm still on these phone calls. Like I'm at the checkout counter and they're like, paper or plastic? And it's like, sorry, Miss Noor, like we can't sponsor your stuff anymore. And then I remember just clutching these Lysol wipes, walking to the beach. Like I just left my car because the calls just never ended. And I was just sitting on the beach with Lysol wipes, continuing to get these. So I knew pretty early on, but when you are in that position, you're not, you can't quite make an announcement that all these companies are pulling until they do. So.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. At least from my side, so for folks, I was volunteering previously as one of the program coordinators for the IGDA Scholars Program. And I remember sitting there, and I didn't have all the information you have, but I remember hearing the news of more and more companies pulling out and just definitely thinking, what are we going to do? What are we going to do with these awesome developers who want to come to GDC, some of which I think couldn't even get into GDC before for other reasons. So, what are we going to do? And I think you and Luke at some point must have sat down and talked about an online program. Like, how did that even come about? Like, what was the thought process for that?
So I remember graduating in the 2008 economy, and it sucked. I think I worked for free for like 9 months before I got my first paycheck. And my first paycheck was something to the tune of $500 a week. So I had worked so many free jobs and internships and then had side hustles. And I was like, look, I've got 60 people on my hands in random countries asking me if, I'll just roll them over to GDC 2021. I have no idea what's going on. I have no idea if the foundation's even going to exist in 2021. And so I was just like, I just remember having a frank conversation, with the powers to be, saying like, blaze of glory, let's go. If we're going out strong, we have 60 people in limbo. It's not morally or ethically reasonable to just say like, see you next year. Even if the grantees were like, oh, please just send me next year, because that's 1 year of just professional development, not advancing. That's mental health. That's just the more you are in isolation and the more you're without a community, the harder it's going to be for you to climb out of that hole. So I was really just like, screw it.
Fair enough. Yeah, no. And I'm so glad. I think the program wound up being really amazing. And I think that the grantees were really excited as well. And we're really, really pumped to be a part of such a program when we talk to them about it. But before you even get the program, you have to make it. So I think one of the things that folks might be curious about hearing is like I think we made like a more formal announcement sometime in March, maybe, because I think that's just when like GDC clearly isn't happening. But we started the program in June. That's not a lot of time, Nika, to build a program. Like how, what kind of things are you thinking about when you're building a program under such short notice? Like what kind of challenges are you running into with this kind of thing?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like between March, April, May, like I had no concept of time because I was just like doing, I was doing like at-home workouts. I was like hardcore locking down. So I I just remember in you as well, not to call you out, but like,
No, that's fair.
I just remember having a bunch of volunteers that wanted to help and like just really not just hustling into figuring out what it is that people can need and what we could do. I don't remember it only being 3 months because I mean, if anything, building out, you know, an online program to support the careers for marginalized people, I mean, it was just a really good distraction in COVID. It gave me a sense of purpose. It gave our community a sense of purpose. I forgot we did it in 3 months. I won't lie. It felt like a year. I mean, I think we were up early. We were calling everybody we knew. And I think the beauty, the weird beauty of doing a virtual program is not only did we have people who needed help stuck at home, there were really senior game vets and individuals that I would have never gotten to stop by our roundtables or meetings at GDC because, you know, most game industry veterans, most like really accomplished, really affluent professionals have a billion meetings to do at GDC. And I felt like we were getting access to some of the biggest names in the most private, intimate settings. And that's what was kind of remarkable, is that I could just pick up the phone and call anybody who would answer. And we normally don't get that at GDC.
Yeah, you're right. Like everyone's super busy. I remember for our programs, we would reach out to people for Q&A sessions, and we were always so grateful for people who were able to say yes, because it was like 7 a.m. these events would happen. We knew that they had a full day, but like you said, now that GDC is not a thing, people have availability and they really want to help. And I think everyone kind of rallied together for this. So kind of transitioning a little bit, so just talking about the program itself. So at this point, we hit June, we have our grantees, they're really excited. What exactly is our program? Because like I said, we did it and then we didn't talk about it for a little bit. So what is this program? What did our participants do?
We need to create like an after action document. So we ended up putting out a survey to figure out of these 60 people who did all of a sudden had their flights canceled, what is it that they were interested in? And it was hard. Their aspirations were all over the place. I mean, I felt like we were literally catering to 60 different jobs. It's not a problem in the games industry per se, but that's the problem with designing virtual spaces or even conferences like this one. There are just so many different types of jobs, from biz dev to more entrepreneurial tasks to getting seed funding, all the way to like actually putting together like 3D environmental design and figuring out how you're collaborating, you know, and so we had people all over the place. And so we've tried to find topics that were like great unifiers, great equalizers, like everything from resume reviews to pitch deck reviews. And then we ended up doing entirely intricate panels on sound design, narrative design, art. We've had, you know, those hard skills. I mean, and that's really that's probably the biggest difficulty is figuring out how you tailor the hard skills, because soft skills are applicable. Overwhelmingly, most of our grantees suffered from imposter syndrome, isolation, access. It's just the whole thing is really kablooey, and it's kablooey. Kablooey is how I'm going to describe everything now. And I don't know if I want to admit this, but the truth is like 30% of it all, we just kind of like made up, because we just started, once we realized people were telling us yes, we just started creating more and more ridiculous asks of companies. I was like, yo, you got vouchers to, you know, to give out free promo codes so they can get like audio kinetic tested. Cool. Like people would just, every time I asked a company or a person for help, the answer was almost always yes. And I was like, how far can I push this? How much more can I ask for? And it became like a really messed up like scavenger hunt.
It's amazing. Yeah, I really loved how many people wanted to come chat with our participants. I mean, we had so much content, Nika. Like, I remember putting together a content document, and you just talked to everybody, you and Luke. I think I talked to like one person, but man, that was so much.
It was, I mean, we did asynchronous, which was just recording people who couldn't make it. And then we did live sessions. The live sessions are awesome. The downfall with live is not everybody can make it in every time zone. So I remember like begging people like, yo, I know it's like 6 a.m. for you, but I have a couple of people in this side of the world where it's 8 p.m. for them that would really benefit. And again, like I think at one point I realized the dirty little secret is that if I, really like a certain game design element, I can just call that company and say, hey, are you willing to do like an off the record, like how, in terms of like how this element of this specific game that we all love was made for a bunch of diverse marginalized devs that want to work on that game? And the answer was usually yes. And I remember because sometimes we would record the talks and we'd put them up on YouTube unlisted so that those who couldn't see it could see it. And we kept getting DMCA takedowns because they were showing us content from games that, have never been seen before or behind the scenes. And so I was like, we were trying to navigate how to like send this content out that keeps getting copyright infringement issues, even though the company themselves were the ones presenting.
Right. Wow. I remember that because we hosted so much, and then I would go through and then it would say, this was taken down. And we thought, you were the ones that said we could do this.
Yeah. So, I was like, it's not a violation if it's the company presenting.
Right. Oh man. So our grantees were, asynchronous calls or firesides. We had luminary talks. We've had Q&As. I think that was a huge one. We had people actually talk about getting into games too. I think that was really valuable. And then we also had networking stuff, right? So like what, and I think we called it Mentor World.
I'll be honest, this stuff blurs together so much. I think that's the struggle of hosting it, is you are either on the phone asking people for stuff, or you're recording a session for like 90 minutes or whatever with, some people are companies, some people are independent developers, and then it's the networking. And I think networking was important. And I had rules. I was like, you have to have your video on, you have to do whatever. This is this is a business conference. So people here, I'm assuming, sorry if I'm assuming correctly, feel free to put it in the comments, but like, I'm assuming people here are very comfortable in camera. They're going to meet to match. But for people who haven't networked ever, especially for a more early entrant, I was like, you have to have your video on. You have to look like you've showered. You have to, be kind of a respectable, this is an industry where it doesn't require you to wear like a suit. Right. But you do need to maintain like certain standards. And so that's why we were like, we're gonna get you to practice being in front of your webcam, communicating with people, figuring out how to tell good stories. How do I talk about things in a snippet? How do I listen? How do I engage when everybody's in a two-dimensional box, right?
Yes.
This stuff is so much easier when it's over a beer. Like, it's completely different to try to create those skills. And so Mentor World, we just had so many people reach out, and when everyone had their individual mentors, we took all the extras, and then we took the actual mentors, and we just shoved everybody into a Zoom call, and then created breakout rooms that were randomized, 20 minutes a session, completely random, 4 to 5 people. And the idea was just to get the grantees to learn how to start building those interpersonal relationships, and also start being, less afraid, less encumbered to actually reach out and follow up with people, because at that point it's on you. Like, you have to build your own success. And I would really much attribute Guy Blumberg over at the Games Industry Gathering. The idea for Mentor World was completely ripped off the Games Industry Gathering, which is every Friday. They run it for 12 hours, and it's just random game devs who are, just replicating the hotel lobby bar at a conference. And unfortunately, this is the world we live in now.
Right.
So, you know, you need to learn how to communicate with people you might never, ever meet in person, because those are the people that can get you jobs.
Right, right. And in a way, I'm kind of grateful that we now have these online spaces, because at least when I was first starting out, I was so afraid to talk to people. But now it's even easier, I feel like, in some ways, and everyone's kind of feeling that weirdness that we're now all online, but now we're able to connect with one another in a way that we wouldn't have if we had these in-person events, I think.
Right.
So speaking of online, like, what are some of the other kind of like advantages or benefits that you've seen to having our program online versus in person?
Well, I hate to put it this way, but like, you know, as like a very petite female, I actually love the networking online experiences. In terms of like, I miss the in person. I'm like, I crush it in person. It's my jam, right? If anyone, I think Sarah and I actually met before the pandemic shut down. I actually flew from DICE to the MDev conference in Wisconsin, because they were so generous to pay. I always feel guilty when someone's like generous enough to pay for your hotel and flight. I'm like, yes, because they've put aside budget, they're demonstrating value. So I got on a red eye. I think it was like the DICE Game Awards, whatever, at 12:30. And then I like landed in Wisconsin at 5 a.m. or something. And then that's how I met Sarah. And you know, I love the in-person stuff. I'm very hospitable. I've got tendencies. I'm like, let's party. But with the online space, what's nice is like, you don't have those awkward interactions. Like I've never felt unsafe. Like, I feel like I don't have to, you know, it doesn't matter what I really look like. I love that people can't see that I'm only 5 feet tall. I think most people I've interacted with over the summer think I'm like 6'8", you know, like, what I do love is like, there's always like, when you meet somebody new at a conference, I mean, I don't care. I let it brush it off, but like, I can tell that you're being scanned, right? If you've played Among Us, you know, when you're in that, you know, when you're in the med bay and like, and there's somebody in there like, is the scan working? I always feel like that I'm being scanned, especially in the games industry, because there's probably so few people of color or marginalized people, but like, I feel like that scan that happens. Like, are you worth talking to? What's her job? What is she, an assistant? Like, okay, she's like super cute. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm going on the other side. I'm going, oh my God, he's kind of creepy. Like checking out whatever. This is annoying. I just want to talk about like video games, right? So all of that is gone. All of that. I don't have to watch my drinks. I don't have to like worry about how I'm getting home. If somebody says something uncouth, I just hit the power button. Right. And like, go eat a snack. Like, this is great. So true. I really love how unencumbered I feel. And it's not that you're not situationally aware. You should always, you know, try to be situationally aware. But all of that goes away. And I think that is something for people who are, you know, specifically women and non-binary can lean into. Because if somebody's just being awful, you could just tell them to fuck off. Like that's it. Like that's the end of the discussion online, and it's kind of awesome. It's a little bit liberating. I probably went on way too much about that. But.
No, I mean, I think it's valuable to acknowledge it. I definitely feel like my experience in the game industry has kind of improved because of that too. I mean, granted, I have surprise cat visits, which I'm not sure if that's a hop on the desk. I'm not sure if I like that or not, but I definitely feel like it's a little safer for me. I have more control over my environment in some ways, and I'm able to really cultivate relationships with people that I value, instead of being put in these situations where, like you said, I'm like, okay, who is this person? What are they doing? I just want to talk about video games, like. so yeah, and I think that we were able to create that kind of safe and productive space for our grantees. And, you know, for some of them, this is their first, you know, few steps in the games industry, and to have them be a positive experience and an encouraging experience is so important. And I'm glad that in this program we were able to do that.
I have
So,
this speech, Sarah, just for this year's grantees. This would have been my first year of doing in-person grantees. I've only been in this gig since not this last July, but the July before. But I had a safety speech. I kid you not. I had a whole safety speech. There's a day one where all 3 cohorts come together, and I had practice. I didn't even tell our ops manager. I was just gonna usurp that bit of the conference. I was gonna be like, "Welcome, so glad you're here. All right, buddy system, check your drinks. Don't be whatever. If you're being harassed, here's your keyword to get out of a shitty, creepy conversation. Right. Don't go to hotel rooms with random people. If you get invited to a party, So I had a whole safety speech plan, and none of that is applicable anymore because we're online.
Right. Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. I remember that. GDC is really exciting, and conferences in general exciting, but it's so new and different and can be scary. And there's sometimes scary stuff that happens. So yeah, I'm glad we were able to have our group, which was not scary.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Everyone was very cheerful and very goofy. And I was glad we were able to be, create that space for each other. So I guess now, kind of looking back then, what were some of your biggest takeaways from this program? And, what would you tell other people were your biggest takeaways?
I hope that when we do move it back into an in-person world, that there's still value to virtual events.
Right.
The people that need this the most are the people who can't usually afford to go or are trying to get in the companies that'll pay them. I mean, I'll be honest, right? I'm one of those spoiled, prior to this, the former executive, I have been to every South by Southwest under the sun, GDCs, used to lobby on behalf of ESA, which is E3, Conference Palooza. If I had kept all my name badges, I wouldn't have enough bins. And I say that because I've been fortunate to have access, and I've never really been to the panel. I don't know, this is a good thing to admit. My alarm went off. Don't worry, and I'm here, and I was 30 minutes late. That's awesome. But I can tell you that I rarely go to panels and talks. I actually watch the recorded clips or look at the Twitter app because I'm always there for the interaction. And I will say, this is the first year where I'm learning. I am going to panels. I'm listening to what people say. I'm interested and engaged differently. And I was just kind of like a corporate schlep, right? But people that want to hear these, people that are listening, they're not corporate schleps. They want to learn more, they want to do more. And I am talking to so many people especially in countries that aren't predominantly westernized cultures, that are just I can't even express the long emails I get being thank you so much. We really don't have anything in my country. I've now connected with this person and got C-Day round of funding. And I'm like, oh my God, how'd you get funding? That's awesome. So I hope that we do move forward into this very hybrid role with value to virtual events and digital events, because I think we can help more people that way.
Absolutely. So if someone wanted to create an online program, do you have any advice for them on how they might pitch it to their organization or to their boss?
Yeah, budget for a lot of time. I would budget for a lot of time. I would expect for everything you write down to either go wrong or not happen. So I think that if you're trying to do with your company, if you have a very bureaucratic process at your company, you are going to end up spending more time developing the program than actually running the program, because this is a thing where, and I think the Indie Game Business Conference has been really excellent. I've been watching its podcasts and conferences, et cetera, for years. I can tell that hopefully I'm not calling him out. I don't know this for fact, but I can tell that they're constantly pivoting and being flexible and figuring out timelines and adjusting and moving forward. And it's awesome. This is an awesome process and workflow. But you can just kind of tell when people are we thought we were going to do this and now we're making it up. and that's okay. I think there's something to say. I think there's an acknowledgement to say that you're making it up because you're just adjusting to the audience and the consumer because nobody has any idea what the hell's going on. Like, right? Like, nobody knows anything. And I think that's okay. When I see the biggest pitfalls of companies are like, I go to my boss, I have a proposal, it'll cost this much, I've got my budget outlined, and what you're not budgeting for is time. You're not budgeting for if you're purely volunteer based and this posting has to go up at this time and that person slept through all their alarms, or like that person all of a sudden is like, I can't, like my cat is stuck in a tree and because of COVID, firefighters take 5 hours now to respond to the cat. Like everything will just go wrong. Like your computer will die, your webcam decides not to work that day, you got a startup idea. I mean, it's so you can do it if you don't have a flexible work environment that allows you to pivot and negotiate also without losing your mind. I mean, right, Sarah, right. I think like one time we did like 8 diverse Zoom recording sessions, like 8 hours worth, 8 different panels. And I realize I'm starting to devolve. I'm in my yoga pants. I'm starting to curse more, and I'm like editing myself out. Like it gets hard. It gets hard because you forget like this is a professional environment where people are looking up to you, so you have to like maintain something. So it's not a great answer, but I would say again, I would say if you are in that very bureaucratic component with a lot of pitfalls, then you need to just white label it. Work with third parties and nonprofits. It's the fastest way to get it done. If you have an idea and you can't get it done like in your structure, or if it's taking way too long, or you're feeling all this resistance and you're like, God, this is just not worth it. Like, I'm just trying to sleep 8 hours a night. Go ahead and just reach out to us. I mean, we know every nonprofit now, so there's always a way to get it done.
Absolutely. And I think we have a question.
Oh no.
Yeah. So what makes the diversity needs in the games industry different than the kinds of diversity needs in other industries?
It's very, 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 very good question. So I always have to kind of center our work because I speak with other industries all the time: restaurants, fashion, alcohol, politics. I've worked with so many entertainment in the form of television. Shocker, diversity is an issue everywhere. Let's be honest. But I think the difference is that when it comes to like toxicity and workplace harassment and online harassment, it's some next level stuff. Like if you go, I know of stories of I'm a game developer and that my name was on the credit and we changed the character's t-shirt from red to blue, and then some community fan base decided that like all of a sudden I'm making some weird political party reference and they're coming after me, and now I've been doxxed and harassed, and they figured out where I live, and they said I ruined the game even though I had nothing to do with the color changing of this whatever, and there's a bomb under my car. And I kid you, and I think it's like the escalation of harassment that's just like insane. Because when I go and I tell that story to my friends in entertainment, or in fact, they're just like, oh, yeah, but no, we don't have people doxing us, swatting us, figuring that out. I think the other need that's interesting is this industry pays people shit. Like, I think this is weird. Like, there are people that make really good money, but compared to technology, like tech companies, like your bigger box, like it's funny to call them big box now. They used to be little, like your Googles and Facebooks and whatever. They are very good at, yes, they also have diversity issues, but they are very good at snapping up talent. And it's because they can pay people well. They pay people stock options. They do all sorts of stuff. And I cannot express, having worked at the Internet Association and then moving into a video game association, we have a lot of talking points about like the average, pay for a game developer. No, benefits at larger tech companies are just significantly better, like overall. And it's weird. And of course, like if you are someone who is marginalized and then just got like shit on Twitter, like of course you're going to go somewhere with better benefits and more pay and awesome maternity leave, right? Like maternity leave policies are all over the place in this industry because we very seldom have people at the helm of leadership that, need to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got another question. What do you think will happen and should happen with unionizing and how it could affect minorities in the industry? Ooh, I don't
yeah,
know.
I mean, when it comes to minorities and unionizing, the thing to remember is we're international. So like we're dealing with countries and people in countries where like they don't even have like companies that are working on game development in those countries. So they're figuring out, how do I just build my own studio? And so it's really tough because we aren't just a US centric entity. We focus on that. Like we basically need to, first of all, we really need to find a better way to, I have never seen such, a lot of industries have professional trades, corporate trades that go and they kind of advocate on behalf of your person and entity. And I'll give you an example. The tech industry, for example, has many, many, many associations. You've got the CTA, the consumer technology, your 5G, your wireless, and games has like two. It's the ESA and IGDA, which does an excellent job on networks and whatnot. I have not seen great work in like bringing game developers together and building coalitions like I do in other industries. I don't know why that's not there. I'm not sure. Maybe like advocating on policy issues just hasn't, maybe the games industry is just significantly younger. I mean, if you go over to transportation, they work on these issues, they work on workers' comps and whatnot, because transportation, I mean, that's an industry that was developed on like, if you want to stick to the US reference for a minute, like, there was a trade association that literally dealt with like horse carriages and buggies, like, right? Like they've been figuring this out for years and years. And that's the real thing, is like, if you're going to ask that question, you have to really clearly define, what are you asking for? Mm-hmm. And once you figure out what are the three things, and it sucks because when I see threads on this, all of a sudden it devolves because everybody has an idea in a different piece. But you have to figure out what are the 3 points that we are going to advocate for and stick to that, and then add the other elements. Right. And yes, it's always going to affect minorities because if you, for example, do start creating organizational structures and grassroots and grasstops, who are the leaders in that space? Are they also people of color? Are they women? Are they pulling it together or not? So
absolutely.
I don't know. I hope I answered that question to an extent.
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer, and I think every year we were asked similar questions, and every year it's just really hard to give an answer just because the games industry
people should feel good and safe going into work. Like, you do what you love, you should be paid an equitable jam. I don't think people are going to love this answer, but if you are in a job that is being untenable to you, if you are in an area where the circumstances aren't fitting like what you need to just freaking live, I don't want to say leave the industry, but start pursuing other jobs. Start looking at other jobs. Hopefully in the industry, there are companies that are doing it well. It is significantly less than I would like. I think, in at least tech, there's, tech is so big, but in games, like, Iron Galaxy Studios does a really good job here. Phenomena is all about running really sustainable apps. And I think a big key thing, and I don't know if this is the circumstance of whoever asked the question, is that I forgot what I was going to say. I had it. I had the thought
Yeah.
and then I lost it. Damn it. If I remember it, I will bring it back. There was a big thing. I had such a buildup.
We'll never know.
No, but that would be it. It's just like, oh, people work so hard for their passions and what they believe in. And I think it's time to move into a culture of like, you can do what you love and you don't have to do it at the expense of what you need.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, for Pete's sake.
Yeah,
Trust me, it will work out.
Okay, do you want to pivot to this question? So as an industry, are we doing a good job tracking and having metrics toward diversity improvement? Yeah,
no. People are asking me this year specifically, I think because diversity is like a weirdly like a hot topic now, and I'm like, great. And it's good that we're having discussions about DEI, but it's very exhausting for people like us who like will still be talking about it next year, and people will be like, oh, like complacent and not care anymore. So I always look for like who's been impacted by the conversation and is still hanging out 5 years from now, not folks that are just like, I must do something. I'm like, no, well, yes, but you must do something 5 years ago, like that.
Right.
So I would say the answer is no. The answer is no because, and this is not just games, you have this issue outside of other industries as well. Industry benchmark tracking is hard. Because you also have indirect kind of game applications. You have contractors that are hard to track. And people don't like to put out their labor and employment numbers, not because they're being cagey, but it's not good for them business wise because they have competitors. So like if you're company A, you don't want to release, I've got X many people doing XYZ because you don't want company B to find out, not because you don't want the public to know, not because you don't want your whatever to know. And the reason why I also don't really even love when people do put out DEI numbers specific to their company. I mean, like, they always count like interns and assistants, and that's fine. I'm glad that we've got minorities in those roles, but like, I'm always looking at leadership because we've been at this for a while now and you get kind of exhausted. And I'm like, well, interns leave after 3 months. So thanks for fluffing your numbers. Did you hire any of them? No? Cool. Then talk to me in 5 years when those people have actually hit mid-career.
Right. Hang on, more reorgs and games. What about parallel organizations like the Producers Guild or the Animation Guild?
Yeah, look, those are like awesome coalitions. There's, again, games so interesting to me in the nonprofit and advocacy space. For Measure, I used to be a lobbyist in Washington, D.C. Yikes. Advocating mostly on like media violence and not advocating for media violence, but kind of describing like the issues at hand, because video games are always a scapegoat for every time, there's wrongdoings in the world. And a specific older generation thinks video games are like the axis of evil and to blame for everything that's going on, which is ridiculous. And the interesting thing with nonprofits and advocacy is like, yes, it's good to have groups. It's good to have coalitions. It's good to have, that jam of what you believe in, but it's not a hobby. Like, you can spend time on it on your own time, but if you want people to take you seriously, you need resources. You need to, either be working on that issue weekends, evenings, etc. The issue with advocacy and orgs that are especially, and we're a volunteer org, but like, is that when you have the churn and burn of people coming and going because they have other things going on in their lives, you lose institutional knowledge. You lose that. You lose being an established entity that can actually like advocate or fight for that issue, right? So our issue, if we were like a coalition, right, we're diversity, equity, and inclusion. I would say, even though I'd worked in games prior to this role, I've never met all these people or this side of the industry. I was working with a completely different side of the industry for 4 years, 4 years. This is all new space. The more indie side of it, the more game culture, and as small as this industry is, not gonna lie, this part of the industry is way more fun. The people are just better. I was like, what was I doing?
You need to get out of that corporate world, Nika.
I know. You know, like being a corporate schlub was like, this is so much more fun. I was like, what? I literally, like 2 months into it, I thought I would come in and just crush this whole jam. And then I was like, I don't know anybody. And now I'm like very, very grateful to people like Jay who invite, who, you know, add to the conversation and bring the IGDA Foundation into these spaces.
So I hopped in because one, we are getting close to the end of time. Well, maybe the end of the session. I did it. I have been trying to get Sarah to laugh the entire thing. This has been, oh my God, entertaining. I jumped in also because I have like my own questions I want answered and I didn't want to type them. But for the rest of you out there, if you've got questions, drop them in chat. We see them all no matter where you're watching us, and we'll get them answered live. So first, Nika, in all your side hustles, what was your favorite?
Oh my God. So at one point in my side hustle career, very, very early on, I had managed to convince people I was a freelance photographer. This is like 2009, maybe 2008. And I had gotten this like little job with a little local newspaper that had a lot of money. But I'm a California girl. I'm based back in California, though in Missouri for the, you know, foreseeable future. And I was it was snowing so hard in the East Coast, and I had a job that was a 3-hour walk away, and I had to go to like a high school to take pictures. And if also like Nancy Pelosi was there. Like it was like the weirdest gig I had ever done. I still remember it because I did not know how to dress. I didn't have boots. And so in like a Converse / Keds like footwear, I was walking through knee deep of snow for 3 hours to go do like a $400 job.
This is one of those that we joke about, you know, when you're a parent and you tell them your kids you walked uphill to, you know, and now you're like, oh, well, I really did it. And your kids aren't going to do it. It's not going to happen. All right. God. So the next one, all right, the other week when AOC was playing Among Us on Twitch for like 5 hours.
Yeah.
One of the streamers asked her, and I can't remember who it was, because she was talking about her experience playing, how she plays League of Legends. And one of the guys goes, did the toxicity in League of Legends prepare you for Congress? And she laughed and said, yeah, it actually did in some ways. But I'm going to like flip that around because you did do work in government. Yeah. And did the work that you did in government prepare you for this industry?
No. And maybe yes. I think I worked in an environment where everybody was shameless, putting themselves forward, trying to get the limelight, applying to every job.
How did that not prep you for this?
Well, because in this community, I am constantly trying to convince people that they're worthy, that they have value, that they should apply. I've only like been surrounded by like, and also I was like always like the only female in every room I was in, because I was advanced to leadership very quickly because I just had no bullshit. Like, it doesn't mean that you should be doing these things, but I was always working. Like, I never went to brunch. I didn't go to like social whatevers. I was going to grad school. I was doing, I mean, I just really love learning. It's all, you know, it's part of my culture. It's part of my psyche. I went to Iran once in my early 20s and I saw what my life could have been like if my parents had stayed. And I came back and I was like, shit, like I'm going to do everything I can because this is the American dream. So I always had that gratitude. And I had also disappointed my family by not going to medical school. So I was like, in our culture, or at least in my family's culture, the way you rebel is you succeed at the thing they don't want you to do, which is like, for me, it was working in the government. Like, it was very, very messed up. But no, because I mean,
not funny, but yeah, funny. That's
I know people here are shameless, but in that industry, like I was just around the most competitive beast, almost all men 20 years older than me, which is fine. But like, we also had a great dynamic where like,
you would go to work and you would battle and have a, duke it on the boxing ring, but it was never personal. You then, like, after that, you'd go and you'd get a beer and you'd talk about it, and good job, you got on this thing and I got that bill through and you did whatever. And it was like really good camaraderie. Here, when people use their words in battle, it cuts. I mean, it's like online harassment. It's mean, it's rude. I'm like, what the heck is going on here? Like people take things kind of a little bit much more personally than I would have anticipated. So I've had to learn, I believe the word is empathy.
My wife tells me I should learn that.
I was like,
sure. I haven't found that online class yet. All right. So I've got more questions, but the good news is Nika has, for some strange reason, volunteered to be on our podcast in January. And so we'll get to ask her all of these questions all over again. So I've got one, and then Neil piped in with one. So I'll start off with the first half of mine. So in retrospect, looking back, has the move that you've made to digital, which I have to say, I was laughing the entire time that you were talking about that, because it's exactly why we started doing indie game business 2 years ago. And I'm like, we've been doing digital shit since 2019 before it was cool. Has it been a good thing because of the number of people that you've been able to reach that you wouldn't have been able to reach during live events? And then, follow in with Neil's questions about, what goals do you have for the foundation in 2021, assuming we actually make it through another 365 days as a civilization?
Yeah, well, to be clear and to start at the top of the line, there's nothing good about a global pandemic. We've had loss all sorts of different ways. We had a loss very early on, which scared me straight. So I want to just like caveat the whole thing. Like, though we have, Phoenix rising out of the ashes and silver linings and learning how to pivot and whatnot, like, to anyone who has, had that hard year, loss of job, loss of business, loss of people, I am very, very sorry. And I'm glad that this is an industry that has really come together, because I've seen other industries, they are not doing well.
Yeah.
My colleagues in other places, when I call them just to check in, I'm like, hey, so how are you doing? Whatever. I feel weird saying, like, comparatively, we're crushing it. And what does it mean to like crush it in a global pandemic when you're dealing with so much mental health and suffrage and loss? It's a very difficult thing. Sarah and I talk about this a lot. I actually have a really hard time reconciling that, like, oh, we're succeeding in the midst of a lot of misfortune. And I don't, and I am very grateful to our sponsors and people who came in this year, because we are going to survive in 2021. Not only are we going to survive in 2021, we are doing better than we've done before. We're seeing more investment in folks like Black and Gaming. We're seeing more investments in Latinx conferences. It's weird. I think we are able now to make a sizable investment in both time and resources in scaling our virtual program, which exists for about 2 months virtually, to 100 people. I would scale it to 200, but we're in the jam of building the technology so that we can scale to 200. So we're building out our infrastructure next year to scale for even more people in 22. But my goal is to bring in 100 people into our 2-month program, to continue to find opportunities and partner with other folks who are just also crushing it, like indie game business. Mm-hmm. And for those that are here, I don't mean to make this plug, but we're in the middle of our 24-hour holiday party fundraiser. I think our goal was something like $30,000, and it ends next week. We are $2,200 away from hitting our goal, and we have with 9 days away. So I'm happy to drop.
Where do we donate? Hold on, I'll put it up there.
You can buy tickets to our holiday party palooza, which is on December 18th. So
where do we go to do that?
I'm pulling up a link right now. Great question, Jay. It's almost like I'm making it up on the fly.
Well, see, this is another great reason we're doing something online, because if you were in the middle of like a talk in person, you'd be like, I don't know, and without your phone. But now we can just Google it during the talk.
I don't know how to send this link out, but I put
you got it.
Chat.
Oh, yeah. So with with Guy, and you brought that up. So that's one of the cool parts of this as well. We're giving out digital swag bags, you know, at the end of the conference, which is like today. But one of the things that if you have a pass, now obviously you can watch our event for free. That's no secret. It's always been like that. It's always will be like that. We're not hiding shit behind paywalls. But the if you have a ticket, so we know where to send it, basically, you're going to get a pass to tomorrow's GIG. My brain is shot. The thing they do that you were talking about. Yeah.
We did it. There's a holiday party happening next Friday. Tomorrow is also another just games industry gathering group. And then we have a soft giving page in case you're feeling charitable. So like if you already have a ticket, that's awesome. There's another place to donate. If you're not vetted or you don't have a free ticket, we have a you can buy a ticket for $10 and all proceeds go to the IGDA Foundation.
Hold on. All right, so we got to go because I've got another call, but I will say, Indie Game Business will buy 5 tickets right now, and you can give them to whoever you need to give them to.
Amazing. Thank you. That's awesome. Thank you, Jay. We did it, Sarah. $2,150.
All right, so Nika, I'm going to ask something of you that I know that you don't always do. Will you please get on our Discord so you can answer more of these questions? You know, she's on there, but she's never on. And Sarah, are you on there?
Yeah. I'm on Discord every day for multiple hours. So
yeah,
I'll be on.
That I don't like about the pandemic. I'm on like 30 Discord channels, 50 Slack jams. I've spent my whole career trying to convince people to get on Slack. I'm terrible at this, but I will go there and I'm answering questions now. I'm on my way.
Right. So if you've got questions, go to discord.gg/indiegamebusiness. I am so glad y'all, got up early and did this. This was so fun. And I'm sorry it took me like 40 minutes to make Sarah laugh, decide.
I normally laugh constantly. So it's a challenge.
It's a problem at this hour. No more F-bombs. That's going to be my 2021 pledge. I'm just going to edit that out.
Fuck it, Nika. Don't worry about it. All right. Okay, so stick around, everybody. We've got Junie and Gwen coming up next. They're going to be having a big, long discussion about Gwen's background and all the cool stuff that she's done, and then where we see everything going in 2021 and how it's changed in the last 10 years. And it's going to be another very fun conversation. I've got to go prep them. So Nika, Sarah, thank you very much. For everybody else, stick around, give me 2 minutes and we'll be right back. Bye.